Okay. So far we've learned, basics of JavaScript, right? And I think what so far what I've covered is, I think it's good enough for you guys to actually get started with React, which is our main objective, right? Just to build game in React, and you would see how easy it is. The earlier classes, I used to teach JavaScript in much more detail, and I also used to give JavaScript projects, for games. But then I found that it's tough just to do a big project in such a short time. Compared to React, I've noticed that people were able to do that right regularly. So that's why I think I chose React. Anyway, when you go out in industry, you will hardly use, well, I should not say you would hardly use. If you're a backend engineer, you may use more JavaScript, like pure JavaScript. But if you are front-end developer, you focus on a user experience and building web applications, websites, things like that. You're going to be mostly using something like React. Okay, so I think that should be the focus, since I don't think anybody uses pure JavaScript for that purpose. So before we go there, I think one thing I want you to learn, which is some CSS, right? What kind of CSS I should focus on? The one that gets you things arranged on the screen. Okay. So why most of the people are afraid of CSS, right? Because CSS is just giant blob of things that you have to learn. And there's just too many things in there, right? That you can learn. You can add borders, backgrounds, add pictures, you can flip the image. I mean, they're just, if you look at the combination of things you can do with CSS, it's just too many, right? So what I'm going to teach you is the biggest problem that you have with CSS, which is arranging things the way you like it, right? How you're going to style it in terms of like add colors and all that stuff, that's I think secondary, right? Which you can easily find on Google. But if I ask you, I want 3 elements, one on the left side, one on the right side, and one in the middle, can you get that done, right? A lot of people would struggle with that because something like that, you need to actually learn solid. And even if you can do that, right, if you add another one, then you need to decide they're spaced equally, right? And that would be usually challenging. So we're going to learn today what is called flex layout. That would help you build those games. So with the knowledge of JavaScript and Flex, I think you're going to be ready for React and building some complex games, actually. How many of you have learned no Flex in CSS? Any of you? Okay, looks like you can just put it in. Okay, let's see. I have, but a while ago. Okay, all right. So I think it should be fun learning that. It's kind of minimum information. With I would say don't focus on the syntax. Focus on a concept. If you focus on a concept, you will always be able to grab the syntax from the internet, because Google has all the answers, but you need to ask the right question. So this would help you ask the right question, right? First of all, how do you arrange things on a website, right? so that's the first thing we need to understand. Let's say if you look at this site, just if you look at CodePen, what do we, let's say if somebody asks you to build this user interface, say, hey, can you build a CodePen interface? How do you do that, right? When I see this, I see, I can break this view into rows and columns. It's almost like when you see a cupboard, right? Cupboards are there so that what I get in cupboard is I get containers, right? So I have a space, vertical, horizontal space that is divided into little squares, right? And then within those squares, I can put another partitions, and that gives me a tiny containers where I can put my spoons or my pen or whatever I want to put, right? So the same concept applies here. If you think of this website as just a giant cupboard, right? If you look at the top shelf, this is our top shelf in a way, right? And the top shelf has this 1, 2, 3, 4 items on the left side. On the top shelf, I have this on the right side, right? But if I look at this itself, right, for example, there's a logo. So I can actually divide, there's an invisible compartment built here, right? So there's a logo on the right side, and then there's a container on the left, logo on the left side. There's another invisible container on the right side where you have partition, top and a bottom, right? And then same thing here, you have 3 partition, the 1, and so forth, right? So I can actually build this much easily once I know how to arrange things, right? So Flex will let you do that. The meaning of Flex means flexible, which means without specifying exact location, I can say just arrange the items where I can say I want one guy on the other side, one guy on the and then one in the middle, right? What is the distance between them? I don't really care as long as the one is in the middle and the other twos are on those sides, right? And that is objective of Flex. It's flexible, not specific, right? So let's do a little HTML. So this time we're gonna hide the CSS part, and we're gonna focus on, JavaScript part, and we're gonna focus on HTML, CSS. And I'm actually gonna hide the console as well because we don't need console. Okay. All right. So here, in order to build Flex, this has actually really cool way to fast type, which I usually do. So let's say if I want to type a div. Div is more like a generic element that I can just use anywhere. It doesn't have any specific, it has specific meaning, but it doesn't have a specific name like, when you have body or header, things like that, or footer. Div is just like generic element that you can just use anywhere in a way. So I'm just going to type div, and I'm going to tab it. When I tab it, it becomes an element. So that's really cool. So I don't have to write those tabs. I can say div like this. If I want body, I would say body and tab. That's it. Okay. So let's say if I want a div, and then inside I want another div, inside I want another div. You can then inside I want to have a span, right? And if I want to format this, I can do this, right? So I just want to show you that using that you can do all of this. Okay. All right. Another thing is if I want to add CSS to HTML, I'm not going to directly enter into what's called inline, right? So usually if I have a div, I can do something like, style equal to, let's say, color is red or something like that, right? Color equal to, I haven't forgot how they write it. Oh, sorry, color : red, my bad. Right, and then I do this, right? I get red color element, right? But we're not going to do that. This is usually, we don't write inline styles. Instead, what we would do is we would say div, and then we would add a class. What is a class? So class is this unique style that I can add to any element. So I write one time and I can use it in many different places. So I would just say, let's say, I don't know, what's the best class? Some class. Okay, so it's a div.sum class and tab. All right. Oh, main class. Somebody said main class. Okay, let's just change it to main class. Makes much more sense. Okay, so now I have this element with the main class. Okay, if I want to style it in the CSS, I would use this dot operator. And this is what dot operator does. Dot means class. And then within that, I can, and obviously I have to write name the class, which is main. And then within this curly bracket, I can write my style. So this actually means that style, anywhere I have this class name equal to main. So it's going to style it here. Okay. So here I'm going to say color is red, right? Okay. Why is it not working? Did I do something? No object. Oh, yeah, I don't have text in it. That's why. Thank you. So if I say hello, I was like, if there's no text, it's not going to color it, right? So now it's a color. I was like, I was trying to look for where's the text, but I didn't have text. So let's practice this. Let's write this. And as I said, write it like this, div dot main and then tab. And then you have your text, right? All right. Let me know once it's working. I want you to at least just handle over writing some styles, right? Any question on this one so far? Okay, so that's that. Just to show you how we can write styles, right? Okay, so now we're gonna look at what flex is. So flex is nothing but, as I said, flexible, which means, remember I said a container. So let's say if I have this container, right? Where I can say, okay, you know what? I have two things. and I want both things to be on polar apart, right? So one is going to be left side and one is going to be right side. So what I'm going to create a div, and I'm going to call it parent, right? And then I'm going to create a child, and I'm going to create another child. I'm going to give them the same class, okay? And I'm going to call it child1 and child2. All right. So by default, they look like this, right? So the way CSS works is even if you don't apply any styles, there's a default style, which basically puts everything in a stack. Think of it this way, right? If it's a div, it's a stack, which means it's going to be top of each other, right? If I want to look at exactly how it works, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take child class, which is this class. Both of these are have the same class child, right? And I'm just going to give it a border. And the border is going to be border. If you don't know, you first type what is the size of the border, which is 1 pixel. Then you can say, how is it? So you can say solid or dotted, whatnot, right? And then you can give some color. Okay. So when I do that, it adds a border, but now you can see the real nature of this element. Before you thought, oh, this element just here, right? But the element actually covers the whole area, right? Which makes sense when you put things on top of each other, right? You want the whole area to be covered. When you put side by side, obviously you can't cover the whole area because they're side by side. They have to coexist. But if it's a single element, it should be full screen, right? So if you look at the cupboard, right? So cupboard, you will have a main container which is like the whole thing, right? And if I want to partition, then I can put a partition in between, right? So I can create 2 elements inside. But again, those elements also cover 100% of whichever the area that is, right? So what I'm trying to say is, by default, div, behaves like a block. Okay. And then there's another element called span. So if I well, let's just keep them as div, but span basically put things side by side. But anyway, we're just gonna deal with the divs today. All right. Now, what I don't want it like this. I want them, one element to be the right side and one element to in the left side. And then I want the parent to have the whole space. Right now, parent is also a whole space. So if I just do this, parent class, because parent is also a class, and I'm going to add a border to be 1 pixel, solid, and blue.
You missed the spell border.
Oh yeah, thank you. I was like, why is it not showing? All right, now you can see the blue border. I think it kind of mixes together and makes it purple, but anyway, so now you can see a parent, which is also a div, by default, it covers the whole area, right? And that's the big, if you understand CSS using physical objects, you will understand very fast. Most of the people, what they do, they just learn some styles, some adding border and all that stuff. And then they're, the CSS is very difficult. I don't know how to arrange things and all that stuff. But if you look at CSS as a physical object, it makes more sense, right? So parent, which is also a block, because it's a div, it covers the whole area. And then within that, I have two other blocks. So it's also behaving like a block, so it covers the whole space, right? Horizontally. And what about the vertically? Vertically, it only occupies the space that it really needs, right? So I have some text here, so child 1, so it only occupies that much space, right? Vertically. But horizontally, it always occupy 100%. Okay. Now, what I wanted to do, I said, okay, I don't want this default behavior. I want to change it. I want child 1 and child 2 to be side by side in the same line, but I want them to be pulled apart, which means one's going to be on the right side and then the other going to be on the left side. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have to call this parent there's a property called display. And I'm going to call it flex, which means I'm using, as you can see, it automatically changed the game, right? So I said, I want my parent to be flexible, which means all its children going to behave in a flexible manner. And this is the default for flexible, which means by default, remember by default is a block. It's no longer a block because it now occupies a space that it needs vertically and horizontally. And by default, it always stays on the left side. So left in a way is a default, right? For anything, right? If you, let's say, go to a classroom, right? You entered usually from the right, and then you walk all the way to the left top corner, right? That's how you start walk. If you want to fill the class, you go left to right, and again, zigzag it, right? To fill the class. The same thing happens by default, it stays on the left side. Okay. All right, but it's still not what I really want. I want them to be, one on the left side and one on the right side. So what I would say is justify. Okay, I would say justify content. And justify content, it has multiple values. So one value is called space between. Okay. Now you can see they're just like, okay, one guy is on that side, one guy on that side. So this is the control that you want to get, right? Now you can say, okay, I can place things flexibly, right? On each side. What if you want to place somewhere else? Let's say you want to have something here and then something here. You can add some paddings, right? So I can add some padding. Let's say right to, let's say 50 pixel or something, whatever you want, right? You can do that. You can control the other things, but at least you know now that they're going to behave the way you want them to behave, right? So this is the control function, and it's very simple. Okay. All right. So what other things that you can do with this? Space between is pretty cool. I'm just going to remove the padding for now. What other things you can do? And also, let's look at the space between when I have more than one child. So this is two children, right? Margin. So, okay, let's understand the difference between padding and margin, right? Padding is, if you have a box, right? And let's say you get an Amazon box and you get some electronic item, right? There's some padding that is inside that keeps the things in the center, right? So padding is always an inside. Margin is outside. So it's also referential, which means if I apply padding to my parent, which means it's gonna add padding on both sides, which is inside. right? Okay. If I apply margin to the child, it's the same thing. So I can, because it says, okay, apply outside, right? Margin, let's say, left 10 pixel, something like that, right? So you see that, or 50 pixels, so for more visibility, right? So, and you must be wondering, okay, why is it this not guide more? Well, because I say margin left, which means it applies on the left side. But if I want to apply, see, that's why you have to be really, you need to understand this, right? I hardly use margins. I usually use padding. Most of the time I would have to put something inside, right? So I want to constrain the items to be within certain area. So if I put padding, I can control from outside. Controlling from outside is much better than from inside, right? Because from inside, you have to worry about right, left, top, bottom, right? All four for every item. But when I apply from outside, let's say if I have 10 items here inside, right? I don't want to, for each item, I don't want the margin and padding. I would rather have some padding out, to the parent, right? So that's the difference between padding and margin. Okay, so let's add more items. Let's add 4 more. And this is going to be 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right. See what happens. I said space between, which means I want them to be, equally spaced, no matter how many elements there are, right? So it says, okay, it will take all the space and divide into how many elements it is. And that's just how it automatically adjusts. I'm not saying that child 2 should be here or there, right? If I just move this around, you see it adjusted itself. You see, there's no fixed position. It's very flexible. So that's the beauty of, Flex Box. It's very flexible. And with just only 2 lines of code, I can just do that, right? Which is very powerful. There are times when I don't want this child 1 to be touching the left, and then child 6 to be touching the right border, right? Let's just do space apart. No, it's apart. The space apart. Space between. Space apart. Okay, let's look at it. I forgot. One way to look at it is this. Let's say I don't know what it is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the parent and I'm going to say inspect. Okay, and then I would come to this where it would show me what the parent is, right? And in here you have this justify content. Right now it's dashed out because it's invalid. Space apart is invalid. I think there's so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go here. Let me move this. And I'm going to say, I'm going to type space. And it gives me 3 options. And look at how cool this is. It gives me 3 options where it shows me what a space around really means, space between really means, and space evenly really means. It's kind of small, but it gives you that understanding, right? So if I just say space around, right, and then look at it, space around basically put equal space, but also it puts space on the right and left side, there are times when you may want to do that, right? Where you don't want the element to be touching on both sides. I mean, you can add padding on the both sides, but then you need adding padding and calculating it to look like this. It's very difficult. So just use a space around. So that was the space around. So this should be space around, right? And then there's another one called space evenly. Okay, so there are three of them. So space around. And then there's one called space evenly. Okay, what happens in a space around? Let's just look at it. Space around has some space on the right and left side, but it's, if you look at it, it's half of the space of what's in between, right? So if this is X, this is X by 2. Right, so if you want an equal space, then you would say space evenly. Yeah, now each of them have equal space, but with the space on both sides as well. Okay, so let's try this. And, be curious, play around with it, right? To see exactly what's happening. So we learned space evenly, space around, and space between. Sometimes it's hard to remember, but usually you are just use inspector to figure it out. Anyone still working on it? I'm going to show you something else, which is pretty cool. We call Flex Frog. Flex Froggy. I don't know if you guys have, I think I've showed you last time, but those who were not there, open this. This is pretty cool. It's called flexboxfroggy.com. And what it does, and you have two frogs. Well, you have three frogs right here. And remember, by default, if it's a display flex, then all the elements stays on the left side, right? So all the frogs are on the left side. The circles are actually the one where you want to place them, right? So you want to put the frog in the circle. So how to do that? So for that, you just have to add that justify content to put them. So what do you think? What should I put here? Justify content. What should this be? Anyone? Is it going to be space between, space evenly, or space around? Try it out and let me know. Okay, yeah, space around. So if I just say space around. No, it's not space around, because space around has space around. In this case, there is, it may look like there's space around, but there's no space around here, right? Because if you look at the distance between green and yellow is quite a bit, right? Which means the green is touching the wall, red is also touching the wall. It's actually space between, right? All right, let's do the next one. So if you go on the next one, how come it just went to, okay, let's just go to the level 1. Okay. All right, so if I want things to be on the right side, I think it may have remembered it. That's why it remembers. If I want things on the right side, it would say flex end. End is on a right side. Okay, let everyone open this, and then we'll try this together. It's really fun. I think this is a better way to learn than what I was teaching. At least I gave you some idea how it works, but I think this may really help you understand it well, because it's like a puzzle, right? Okay, so again, justify content has more than 3. It has many. Let's say if you have multiple elements and you want all of them to be on a right side. So think of left side is the start, and then right side is the end. So if I say end, it puts it on the right side. And the next one is, well, center. I think I already finished this. That's why it's, you know what? Let me open it in the another screen. Maybe this would do. Okay, so here we'll go. We'll just say justify content and flex end. All right, it puts it on the end. Okay, so the next one. Center puts both in the center, right? So this is going to be justify content center, right? Both in the center without any space in between. So this one is space around, because this space and this space, so there's some space here. I think that the border is somewhere here. A little confusing, but this would be justify content space around. Content around, right? All right, this one is all we already looked at. This is space between. All right. Okay. All right, I'm gonna wait for you guys here. This is the fifth of 24. So everybody could come to here, and then we'll try to put them in the right place, right? So we already looked at the how to do horizontally. So we have four, right? We have start, flex start, puts in our left, flex end, puts in our right, flex center, puts in a center, flex, space between, space equally without space on the side, space around, puts a space on the side, but half of what's in between, and then space evenly, puts equal space, but with all the space around as well. Now, there are times when you want to put things vertically and horizontally, right? So for vertically, just like we have justify content, it's for vertically, it's called align items. Okay, so you have four of these. It says flex start, flex end, center, baseline, and stretch. Okay, so we already know start should be in the top, end should be in the bottom, and this is at the bottom. So I'm just going to use flex end, right? And that puts them on the bottom. All right, what about these guys now? Let's do this one. This is 6 of 24. I'm going to grab some water. Let's do this, 6 of 24. All right. Now you can see here, it says you need to use combination of justify content and align items. So let's use that.
I am stuck on the fifth one.
All right.
When I try to, I write justify content, flex end, but it's not.
No. This is going to be align items, flex end. Justify is for setting horizontally. Now we are doing vertically, right? In this case.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's align item. Okay. In this case, we need also align item and justify content. We need horizontally because now we have a two-dimensional space, right? Where we want to do, we want this frog to be in here, right? Now, what is in here? You have to define what is this, right? And then based on that, you just write both. All right. There are two things to play with: justify content and align item. Try different combinations, see which one works.
Sorry, again, I'm stuck again on the fifth one.
Okay.
I said align. Oh, it's items.
Items, yes.
Oh, okay. That's why.
Okay.
Thank
you. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, I'm gonna at least give you one hint, since we need to move forward. So we already know justify content, right? We need this frog to be in the center, right? Because what is it? This is center and then center, right? And then align item items is going to be what? So horizontally, center, and then you need to put it here, this guy. Yep. And if you don't know what it is, I think this one, if you click on it, you see it gives you all the possible values. Start and center, space between, space around, space evenly. This one, start and center, baseline, stretch, right? So, try, just see what makes sense, right? Start is always on the one, either if it's a align items, it's on the top. If it's a justify content, it's on the left, right? End is on the right or bottom, right? So we know that we need to use 1 and 2. And then for this one, we have this many items. So try these items and see which one works. So right now it's a default, right? So stretch is a default. Okay. If I do, end, flex end, then it goes at the bottom. Flex start goes to the stop. Stretch, is it a stretch? Hold on. It's also on the top because it's not going to change the size. And then there's a baseline. I think its baseline is also top. Is it a baseline? Yeah. Okay. The only other possible value is the center then, right? That's where you need to put it in. Because you can see this is center, right? Oh, you said Raheem said space around also works. Let's try that. Space around also works. Okay, because it's a one element. If it's more than one element, it would not work. But anyway, if it works, it works. Right? Because if it's a single element, space around it, put space, which makes sense, right?
I'm here to bother you.
Put on both sides.
Wait,
what?
All right, let's try this 7 of 24. You need to use both justify content and align items.
No. Can I ask one thing?
Sure.
How do you see the options?
Oh yeah, you click on it.
Click on it. Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
It is something that if you do more and more, your brain will, get used to it. Obviously, as I said, I would say don't worry too much about the syntax. As long as you got the idea, what is the concept here, right? You can always look it up, right? And then, Google will help you. But if you don't know the right question, you're not going to get the right answer. All right. Once you have it, put it in the chat. Okay, so let's look at it. So first of all, justify content, right? So by looking at it, right? So let's say if this frog is here, I think they're on a border, maybe not, but let's just see. It could be either space between or space around, but it's not space evenly, right? So if I just use space between, for example, so I'm just going to use justify content and then space between, right? So I can see they are here. Okay, I would definitely need to move them here to see if it really works, right? So I already know the align item would be flex end, right? So now I can see it's not matching because it's not between, because the between always stick to the that's the only problem with this game is you don't know where the border is, right? So this would be space if you look at it, right, there's a space around. So this would be space around, right? It makes sense to put them first at the bottom, right? Then you adjust it because otherwise you won't be able to see much. Yeah. All right. Let's move to the next one. Okay, so this one is, you have 3 elements. You have, okay, so this is the next chapter. We're not using, obviously we can use flex end, right? We can use flex end to move them. But if we do flex end, what happens? Let's say if we use justify content, right? Okay. Right. And what was it? Flex end. See what happens, right? You see the frogs are in a wrong location. The green is in the red and red is in green, right? So flex end, it just basically say, okay, arrange them on the right side, right? But what we also need is a direction, okay? And a direction is you need to reverse them, right? And that's what we need to do, which is flex direction is row reverse. Okay, so it reverses the row basically. And by default, when you say row reverse, it puts you on a right side anyway. So row, by default, row is a default one. So if I say row, it's on a right side where number 1 is it is placed, not 1, 2, 3. But if I do row reversed, 1 comes on the right side. So let's look at it. It's a little bit, it can be a little bit confusing. So we need to have, we need to look at it in a actual code. Okay, so let's say if, we have a parent, right? And inside, let's say, child, I'm going to call it C1. And then 2. I'll just say 1, 2, 3, which makes more sense. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Then child, we are going to style something which is, let's say, border. You want to have it 1 pixel, solid, and blue. Okay. And then, yeah, let's just have that one. And then we have a parent. We haven't applied the flex, so we're gonna say display flex. As soon as you do that, they kind of, well, let's just add some padding. Okay. So they look like this. Okay. By default, as I said, it's the flex direction. So that's a new property. Flex direction. Okay, it is row, and this is a default one. So even if you apply it, it's not going to make any difference. But if I want this thing, all of them to be on the right side, so the difference between, remember we use the justify content, and then if you can say flex end, it puts everything on the right side. But you see, it keeps its order, which means 1 is still on the left side and 4 is still on the right side. If I remove it, for example, it does the same thing, right? 1 is on the left side and 4 is on the right side. So if I want a reverse order, I would say row reverse. Okay. Now it's 4 is on the left side and then 1, so it reversed, right? That's why the froggy, I want the green to be this side and then red to be this side. I have to use, flex direction, row reverse. Let's try this out. Let's add some interesting stuff. I'm going to add some font size, which is a little bigger, so it looks pretty. Font size, let's say 20 pixels or 40 pixels. I can add some background color. Yes. I know. Blue is too dark. I don't know. Yellow. Okay. So now it looks, so if I just change this to row, they will go this side. It kind of flips like this, right? Any question here? Okay, what are other properties of flex direction? Let's look at it. So there's a row reverse, a row, column, and column reverse. So what is column and column reverse? Let's try that. So I would say column. Remember, column is like blocks. It always occupies 100% space, right? So again, it changed to column because if I want to put them on top of each other, it has to occupy the 100% space of its parent container. And if I say column reverse, the 4 is going to be on the top, 1 is going to be the bottom. So it just basically it says columns, but in a reverse order. That's what it means.
I have a question.
Sure.
When they were in the row form,
okay,
we need to create a little space in between these items. How can we do that?
Okay.
Not space around, not space between, because that creates a lot of space. Say, for example, like in navigation bar, we usually have these items, the nav bar items.
Right.
And we need to space them, like we need to give a little bit space in between them, but not too much.
Okay. So think of this way, right? If you have a cupboard, right? When you do padding, it basically pads the whole thing, right? Which means it's going to add something on the right side, something on the left side, You can add top and bottom as well, right? But if you want something in between, you have to tell each element to do that way. So what I'm gonna do is, let's say if I want to add some space here, right? And I know this is going to be on the left side, for example. So if I add some margin on the right side for 1, right? And the same thing I do for 2. So I'm going to have to add margin, and it's going to be right? I want to add a margin to the right side of each element, right? I'm going to, let's say 10 pixels. Okay. But if it's a row reverse, then I want to do on the right side, right? So if I say row reverse, for example, right? Instead of right, I'm gonna add it to the left side because you see there's more space here, right? So left side, then it just goes to the left side. Okay, yeah. So like these buttons have have the margins inside here. All right. So let's make them a little bit more prettier. I'm gonna add, let's say what am I gonna add? I'm gonna add some border radius. Let's say 5 pixels.
Border spelling.
15 is too much, maybe it's 5 again. Okay, and then enter blue if I have. Also have yellow, but a little bit of a dark. I think if you have darker yellow, right? So I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna go each child, right? And then it's yellow here, right? So I'm gonna do his, I'm gonna grab this and see which color makes sense. Okay, this is too dark. All right. So this kind of makes sense. Okay. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna grab this color. What was the color? Yeah, this one. And then save it here. And let's close this. Oh. Maybe 2 pixel border would look good. I don't know. Okay. The objective is to, if you want to make things, you know, presentable, you need to try different things, right? You have to play with the contrast and things like that. Right. So now we have this, you know, these numbers that are arranged nicely, right? Okay. So we looked at the you know, row reverse. I think it's gonna take me to now column reverse. Well, this should be flex direction what? So this is a 9th. Now you should be able to do this one. And you can always look at there are four options, right? You already know it's not row because we want it them vertically, which means it has to be column, right? The question is it column or column reverse? Yep, that's this is column, right? Because if it was a reverse, the red would be first. Okay, so this one, we already know it's a row, right? So flex direction is obviously, it's a row means it's not column, obviously, right? It could be column, it could be row or row reverse, right? And then we also have to justify content, because once you do reverse, it always goes on the right side, right? So you have to play with the second property, which is justify content, to do that. All right. So we already know this is going to be reverse, right? Row reverse, because because red has to be on the right side and then green has to be on the left. Red has to be on the left side and the green has to be on the right side. So we know it's something reversed, right? And there is no reverse in justify, so it's a flex direction. So we're gonna do first flex direction, which is gonna be row reverse. What row reverse does, it puts them on the right side, right? So then justify content. Well, we already know that space between won't work, space around, all of those won't work because there's no space between them, right? So which one it is that if you look at the options, you can do start. It's not center, obviously, right? Because there's three. So is it start or end? So let's start with flex start. The thing with the flex start is when you do reverse, the start goes on the right side, which means this would be on the left side. So this is the most step. This will be flex end, right? Because typically flex start is always on left side, but in this case, it's the right side because we already reversed the row. So that this one is a little bit of tricky situation, right? Any question on this one? All right, let's look at this one. So this one, we want to use justify content and flex direction. All right. So, all right, let's look at it. So we already know that it's going to be something column-y, right? It's not a row. So first of all, I'm just going to play with the flex direction. Okay. If it's column, then it's here, right? And then, so that's, you know, that's my flex direction. Now, I can get align items, right, to play with it, because now it's our horizontal game, right? So, oh, this one, it wants to use justify content, help the frog. There's, so flex direction and justify content. Okay, so notice that the direction is column changed to vertical, align items, so to be horizontal. So, okay, so it wants us to use justify content. All right, so let's use, instead of flex direction, let's use justify content. Why does it want to use justify content? I still don't understand, because justify content is, it moves this way, right? And it's already on the right side, which means, I mean, I think the best way is this. Okay, now notice that when you use flex direction column, justify content change to vertical. Oh, okay, okay. Okay, good, that's why. So the tricky thing is, you can use this way. So if I say flex direction equal to column, right? The justify content, now the vertical space became, the horizontal space became vertical. So the justify content is going to be flex end, I think, in this case, right? Because this is top, this is bottom, and then you want to put them in a bottom. So we're going to say flex end, because it wants you to use this specific combination, right? All right. All right, let's go to the next one. Find the pad using direction and the content, right? Obviously, direction is what? You look at the order, right? Yep, makes sense. It's column, right? Or is it a reverse column reverse? Let's look at column first. What happens? You need to reverse it, right? Column reverse, right? So now my red is on the top, which I need, and then yellow is in the middle and green at the bottom. So the order, I mean, the arrangement is right. I just need to put them, right? So if I just use space between for justify content, because we are using column reverse, we, you know, or as I said, our horizontal becomes vertical, right? So this would be space between. Right. And I would suggest, if you don't understand, go start from the beginning, for level 1 Froggy, and then go all the way. I think it only has a 24. So yeah. Okay. I want you guys to do this by yourself. I think you guys can do it. And everyone put your response in the comment. So you need to use 3 things: flex direction, justify content, and align items, all 3. So as you can see the order is wrong, right? Which means something is going to reverse. So that's the first thing you need to notice, right? Because red needs to go. So something has to reverse. All right, people are now understanding it clearly. Yeah. So it is in the center. It is in a reverse order. So 2 things are clear, right? It's in the center and it's a reverse order. And it's also a rowish, right? A few people are becoming really good. So if I want to, so I already know that it's in the center, right? So I'm going to say justify content is in the center, right? And then it's a reverse, right? So flex direction is row reverse, right? So now I have all 3 flocks aligned. I just need to put them in the bottom, and it requires align items, right? So I would just say align items, flex end. This is actually a great tool. When I discovered it, I was like, oh, this is so cool. All right, I'm going to move to the next one. Okay. Now we have something called order. And the order is, okay, if you look at this, right, green here is here. So there's no reversing. If I reverse it, then the green would go here in yellow, which you don't want, right? You just want this to be flipping. So the red needs to be here and the yellow needs to be here. So how do we move them? Right. So you need, if you look at the order property, it's between, you know, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, like that, right? Okay, some people are already figuring out. That's good. So let's try different values. So if I say order, and it wants us to only change yellow, right? Which is this guy, because it's about frog. It's not about the circle, right? It's about the frog. So yellow, we want to change the order, right? So we would say order is, let's put 0 first. Let's see what happens. Nothing happens because this is a default one, right? Let's put 1 as an order. Okay. It works. Why did it work? So order is basically, okay, all the 0 items. So by default, everyone is 0. Okay, so the way it works is this. Okay, so let's take a look at this, right? And let's remove flex direction. So we have, so we already know that 1's supposed to be on our left, and then 2 and 3, 4, because that's how it's defined, right? So usually order is the one how you define, and they all have order 0. 0 means, you know, I don't want any priority. Just place me the way it's supposed to be placed, right? If 1 came first, it has to be first, right? 2 came second. It obviously depends on, you know, flex direction, but in this case, it takes, you know, this order, right? Now you want to keep this order the same, but you want to rearrange the items here. So how do you do that? So by default, order is 0, which means no order at all, which means, you know, get them, you know, there is no order, which means they are in that rank, the way they're defined. But then there's some priority. So what I will do is I would just change order of, let's say, 4 to 1. Now let's not do this one. Oh, not here. Not here, my bad. What I have to do is, okay, let's do this. Because I have a child, which means they all have the same property, right? So I have to create another class called 1, which is, I'm going to apply to this guy, right? Then I have another class called 2, 3, and 4. Right, so I'm going to give this child 1 class, this child 2 class, 3 class, and this child 4 class. What does it really mean? Which means I have 2, so this element has child and 1, both classes, which means it's going to take this and whatever I have in here and combine them. For this one is child and 2, which means they can say everything in the child and everything in 2, right? So this way we can apply separate things in here and then common things in here, right? So I'm going to take, let's say, 3, and I'm going to say order is 1. Okay. Which means anything that has a 0 order has to be on the left side, because the order is incrementing. So 0, 1, 2, 3, like this, right? So I already know that by default, everything is 0. So this was 0, this was 0, this was 0, this was 0. Now I changed 3 to 1, which means say, hey, the 4, which already has 0, should move to the front automatically. So this has 0, this has 0, this has 0, and then this has 1. right? So the 3 moved back. If I change 1 to also 1, what would happen? Let's think about it. Anyone's got an idea? What if now I change 1 to order 1? What would happen?
Two and 4 will move forward.
Yes, 2 and 4 would move forward, right? Because 3 and 1 is going to have now order 1, but since 3 is defined last, it will stay, last, right? So if I say order is 1, now it's going to be 2, 4, 1, 3, right? Because 2, 4 has order 0, 1, 3 has order 1, but they're defined. But what if I want to move 1 to here and then 3 here, right? So I want 2, 4, 3, 1. In that case, I'm going to have to change the order of 1 to 2. And then it would flip. Now it's 0, 0, 1, 2, the order, right? In that case. So even though I've defined this way, I can just use order property to flip things around, right? So that's what we did in the froggy example, where we wanted to move red to the back, right? So initially, it was like this. So we want yellow to move back. So we already know they all have 0 initially, right? Which means green is defined first, then yellow is defined, and then red. So if I just simply just give the order of yellow to 2, it automatically moves it out because this has 0, so it goes first, right? That's why order 1 would work. Even if I just do 100, doesn't matter. It doesn't change. I can do 1, 2, 3, doesn't matter because these 2 are 0. So whatever order I put is going to be always last, right? So this could be any number, except 0. If I put -1, it will put in the front, right? Because -1 is lower than 0, so it will put in the front, right? So, but yeah. Any question on this one? Okay, now let's do this one. 15. We have red. Okay. Only have 1 red frog here. I want it to be in the front. How would that work? Yep. Got it.
It's -1. We have to give
Yep.
order
-1.
-1.
Yep. Everyone is 0, so if you put -1, it puts in the front. That's it. All right, let's do this one. Obviously, you need to, do some magic for yellow to move it to here, right? And also, so this is aligning self. So remember, so far we have said align items, which means if I'm inside the parent, I want to align my items inside in certain way. But I can actually, as a self, I can align myself, which is an individual item. So this frog wants to move here, but it doesn't want to take all of the frogs with him. So it can say align self, right? So let's try that. And it takes the same value as align items, right? So yeah, if you look at it, right? So same items. All right, so we already know this is going to be align self, right? We're already aligning. This is yellow, which means only this guy. So top is the start, bottom is the end, right? So flex is the answer. Okay. All right, so I think you can go over the rest of it, but what I think the next thing I want to teach you is kind of important, right? If I want things to be more how do I say this? If I want things to be within certain thing, you know, like arranged nicely within an area, right? How would I do that? So let's say child is the style I'm going with. I'm just going to remove all of these things here so that it loses its order. That's fine. I don't really care about the 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So now what I want to do is I'm going to give this child some height and a width. Let's say height is you know what? I'll just keep it this way. So I have a parent, right? What I'm going to do, I'm going to create, I want to create this, let's say this, okay? Where I have a header and then 3 items. And I have a 12 minutes. I'm going to create this for you in a really quickly, right? And, you know, let's see how I do this, right? So I'm going to remove pretty much everything except parent, right? And I would just say parent is obviously display flex, right? And I'm going to have some generic class called gen, which every element will have. I'm going to call it, I'm going to have a border, which is 1 pixel, solid, and let's say green or something, okay? All right, so I'm going to have div generic inside. All right, and this would be, let's say, the top container, right? And then I'll have, so this top container, all right? And then I need another one called bottom, right? So I'm going to say div bottom, okay? Which is going to be this container, all right? Okay, in the top, I have, what do I have? I have, if you think of this way, right? I have 2 things, the left side and a right side, right? Right side, I have a bunch of buttons, right? So I'm going to call div dot top right, and div dot top left. Okay, nothing is coming in here because I haven't filled any other style, but I just want to have, and then, okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to work on the top part first. So let's give the top some style, right? So I would say top and display is going to be flex, right? So top is basically nothing but this guy, the whole top, okay? Display flex. Obviously we can't see anything because none of these has any content. And then right is this and left, oh, sorry, right is this and left is this. Okay, let's work on a right first. Well, I just change the order so that it's left is on the left side and then right. And within right, I have, let's have button, right? Because it's nothing but button. And we have a save button. We have settings button. Then we have button. This is some image, right? I'm just gonna write image, and then that's enough, right? You get the point. So I have some of them here. By default, it has some space, but you know, obviously I can add some space, but that doesn't matter. All right, so this is here, right? What about the left side? Left side is, I have actually two elements, this guy, and I can hold this whole thing, right? So I'm gonna say div logo, right? So that's this logo. And I'm gonna just type in logo because we don't have images right now. And then I'm gonna have div title. I'm gonna put it container because it's a container, right? Okay. And it has two things actually. Is a title top and title bottom. So div title top, which says untitled, right? And div title bottom, which says Captain Anon. All right. Obviously, it looks kind of ugly, but we can fix it. So first thing, the parent is display flex, cool. The top, it should also be display flex, right? So which it is, top is display flex, but the item inside, well, the parent's supposed to have columns, right? So because if you think of this parent has one, so we want the flex direction as column, right? Because the top has to be, the top is column and then the bottom is also column, right? All right, so since we are just thinking about the top right now, and then the top has two items, this guy and this guy, and then there are space between, right? So I'm just gonna say justify content is space between. right? Oh, yeah, bingo. See? All right, so now they're like that. What about the top left, which is this, right? So top left, obviously it's also display flex. And then how do you want to arrange the items? I want to actually, is it a top left like this? Okay. Oh, top left, right? It's display flex. And okay, so it worked like this, top left. And then the container has top, and then this would be top container. It's going to be also display flex, but it's going to have columns, right? So I'm going to say flex direction is column, right? So I have a logo on this side, then I'll untitle, and then this. Obviously, I can style it properly, right? This, I'm not styling it, but I'm just putting them in the right location. So if I squeeze this, they're actually, you know, kind of keeping it where it's supposed to be. You see? Right? And then the bottom, I can do the same thing, right? I have three inside the bottom, I have three columns, which I can also set. But see, the idea is having this kind of arrangement. Also, this button needs to be in the center, right? So I would say, what is the top? Not top left, top right. Okay, top right, right? It's top right here. Okay. So what I would do is I need align items. Align items. I want them center, right? Is it the top left? Align items. Okay, is that a top left? Oh, sorry, top right, my bad. Top right. Do I have top right here? Okay, I don't have top right, so let's add top right. Top right is also display flex, and then align my item center. You see now they're in center, right? Vertically center, you mean. So this is how you can build your any layout, right? You don't have to worry about arranging it, because now you know how to arrange them. You have 5 or 6 different things that you can just play with. Flex direction, justify content, align item. And if you want to do individually something, you have align self, right? You have the order to mess around with, right? And that's your flex. I mean, obviously there are way more to what we learn, but you know, I think with this knowledge, you can pretty much build anything. Okay, it's just like arranging a cabinet. That's it. Okay, if you need to put something in place, you just create a smaller compartment, and then so it doesn't fall apart, right? That's what it is, actually. Any question on this one? All right, so I think with this knowledge, you can now build some UI, and then styling, you have to, you know, if I want to style this, right? Obviously, I have to understand, you know, like fonts and colors, and which you can easily learn yourself. I mean, as long as you can align stuff, everything else just is pretty simple. All right. Okay, yeah, we are 6 o'clock. So yeah, if you guys don't have any questions, that should be it. I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. I think it's one of the most, you know, in 2 hours, I taught you CSS. It's not complete CSS, but with this, you can do a lot, actually. You know, before CSS, this was really painful, but before Flex, but Flex has changed the game completely. A lot of you know Bootstrap, right? So before Flex came, there was Bootstrap. Bootstrap was doing the same thing, but it did all the calculation inside. But then once a Flex came in, Bootstrap kind of became irrelevant because now you can do the same thing in pure CSS. You don't need to use Bootstrap, but yeah. All right. All right. So yeah, if there's no more question, I'll see you guys next week. And we're gonna start with React. So it's gonna be more fun. And I bet you're gonna love it because, as I said, it's such an easy, it's such a wonderful platform, and you can learn to build very complex applications with ease. So yeah, this is the path. So we're gonna ease into it, React now, and I think it's gonna take us about 4 to 5 classes to learn full React, and then we're gonna start building some games. All right. So make sure you attend most of the classes moving on. So if you miss something, then it's, obviously I record and everything, I put it online, but it's different when you're learning live. So, all right. I'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, thank you for explaining so well. Yeah, it did make like the Flex box looks very simple.
Yeah, play around with a Froggy, just play around a few times again with Froggy, and you'll get more idea. Yeah. All right. Bye.